Hello everyone, this is Grandmaster Ankit Rajpara here. I welcome all of you to the special collaboration between Chess Neurons and ChessBase India. For this episode of Strategic Mastery series, I have taken all the positions from the games where a Grandmaster missed an opportunity to play the better move. So let's get started with the first position. So this position is from the game of none other than world number 1, Magnus Carlsen. Now if you want to attempt this position, please pause the video here and then you can resume once you are ready with the move. So as we can notice, Carlsen's bishops are quite active. They are aiming at the king side. The knight is also well placed. But these bishops are not enough to make the breakthrough. So he needs something more. So if we can bring more pieces, if more pieces can put pressure on the king side, it would be great. Now, if this rook could put pressure, it would be awesome. But what's the problem right now? The pawn on h5. Our own pawn is the problem. So we need to do something to get it removed. And there is a very clear way with which we can do that. That is knight g6 check. So what's the plan? So by the way, black has to capture because otherwise the rook will go if black goes king h7. So if black captures, so say knight g6, bishop g6, h takes g6, the rook gets active. And by the way, white is threatening mate in 1, rook h6. So black will stop it by playing knight g8. So then in this position what we can do is the pawn is gotten on g6, so we can take advantage of that by putting our bishop on f7. Look at that bishop. Look at this pawn, this rook, this bishop. There is tremendous pressure on the king side. The plan will be to play rook h5, king e2, rook h1 and rook h5. Also increases pressure on this pawn, and this is just too passive position for black. And I'm sure that if Magnus had played this, he would have won the game. But instead he played f4 in the position. He still had better position, but then later the game got complicated and he lost the game. So now let's look at another example. So this position is from the game between former world champion and Grandmaster Vladimir Kramnik. So he has white pieces here, and let's try to understand what to do. So I can notice that he is up a pawn. This is the pass pawn. For now it is being blocked, but it's still good to have an extra pawn and a pass pawn. So this is what should be our strategy. So we should try to activate our pieces. By the way, in one of the previous episodes, I had taken a very similar position of Bobby Fischer where he was up a pawn and then he very skillfully converted that endgame into a win. And very similar concept can be noticed in this game. And by the way, this game of Kramnik was an online blitz game. So since less time would have been there, he might not have found the best move. But if we apply what we had learned in that Fischer game, then, and also those who want to attempt this position, you can pause the video here and you can resume once you are ready with the move. So what should we try to do? Those who have watched that Fischer video, the previous strategic mastery one, so you can try to apply the same thing. And then you will get the idea. Those who have not, maybe if you have some time, you can watch that video and then come back and then you can try to do that. Now let's resume the discussion. So the main idea in that Fischer position that I had discussed and here Kramnik would have played is keep your pieces active even if you are up in material. So he should have brought his rook on the open file. If the rook is active, then he would be able to not only create more activity, but if your pieces are active, then it becomes difficult for your opponent to also create counterplay. So what's the plan? The rook can go to a5 to put pressure on this knight that is blocking this pass pawn. The rook at times can go to a8 to keep some pressure on the king. So depending upon how black plans, so something can be done. Now in the game, Kramnik played knight e3, so it was not the best move. And in that case, black could have played knight c3 and then these would be under pressure and black would get some activity. So let's try to understand rook a1 bit further. So after that, if black gets the rook on the second rank, no problem at all. Rook a5, we have no problem in giving up our knight because we would be capturing this knight that is blocking our pass pawn. If the knight moves, we can also move the knight and then we can try to push our pass pawn, and this is clearly better position for white. Now let's say in this position, if after rook a1 opponent plays bishop d2, no problem at all. We have gotten our rook active. Now it's time to get the knight active. We can play knight c4 type of ideas in this position. And this is just, and if bishop c3, then also not to worry. We can just remove that rook with a check, and then knight c4. Now knight is active, rook is active, and we already had an extra pawn, and this would not be that difficult for white to win. Okay, so let's go for the next position now. So this is white to play here, and it's the game from the Indian star, Grandmaster Arjun. So he has white pieces here, and black was also a very strong Grandmaster, Dubo Daniel. So, and this was taken from World Team Blitz Championship. So if you want to attempt this position, please pause the video here, and then once you are ready with the move, you can make an attempt. So since this was a blitz game, Arjun actually did not play the best move, but it happens to the best of us. What should he have done in this position? So he had a brilliant idea. So he has this rook on the open file, and then he has this brilliant idea to get it on the 7th rank. What to do? The brilliant idea is queen h7 check. If the king had gone to f8, then there would be queen h8 mate. So king h7, then bishop d3 check. So, and then we get our rook on the 2nd rank, making use of the tactic to meet our positional goal. So you have to remember, calculation and positional play, we cannot just like that separate them. So they go hand to hand in the game, and we have to make use of both to improve our position. So what he does is he gets the rook on the 7th rank with a tempo. Already he had the double bishop advantage, so things were going good for him. And let's say if something like c4, because if knight f8, then there would be bishop b5, bishop f5 type of ideas. If rook d8, then this pawn would go. So this seems a bit troublesome for black. And if he had played c4, so we can play bishop f5, and there is definitely pressure on this knight, on this pawn also, because this rook cannot move. This rook is too active. Now black can try to play bishop b4. I can try to create some activity. By the way, we should not be greedy and take the knight, because opponent can take the pawn, and these connected advanced pass pawns can create problems for us. Simple chess. Let's take the pawn, and then we can try to bring the knight to c3 and put pressure on this pawn. So if Arjun had played queen h7 check, then I'm pretty sure that we would have won the game. And I'm pretty sure if the time control was longer, he would have definitely found it. But blitz time control, so such type of things happen. So in this position, bishop c3 was played instead, and then queen c7, queen d2 had happened. He's still better because he has the double bishop advantage, but not as much as if he had played queen h7 check. And actually, despite not playing queen h7 check and playing this idea, so slowly he improved his position, and then eventually went on to win the game. Now, let's go for the next position. So this is from the game between Nakamura versus Andrikin. Both of them are really strong grandmasters. So Nakamura had white pieces and Andrikin had black pieces. This is once again taken from an online blitz game. So if you want to attempt this position, please pause the video here, and then you can resume once you are ready with the move. So what should Andrikin try to do? So there is some imbalance in the position. Black has these, so black's king side pawns are not that safe. White has also doubled pawns, but they are not doubled isolated pawns. There is g2 pawn, but there are 4 pawns on the king side for white, while black has 3 pawns. So white has some pawn majority, but because of these double pawns, it will not be that easy to take advantage of that. On the other hand, black has this pawn majority on the queen side, so that's a good thing. If we compare the pieces, then the rooks for both the sides are not that pretty placed. Now, if we talk about knights, this knight is quite flexibly placed. It can go, it is covering this, it is covering this, though it cannot go to c4, but still it is covering that. So it's important, it's in the center, it's quite flexible. Well, Nakamura's knight is on h4. It can go to f5, but right now the square is being covered. So all in all, black's knight is well placed. So what we should try to do? See, we should try to play our strength. So in this position, it's clear that based on the pawn structure, and our knight also being there, that we have some activity on the queen side. So we should try to push there. We should try to activate our pieces as much as possible. So, and then we have this pawn break, b5 pawn break. But please remember, if you're going for the pawn break, then make sure to try to improve your pieces as much as possible and then go for it. So you would be able to put more pressure on the opponent. So the move to improve the piece would be rook a6. this nice little rook lift. So what's the idea behind that? Rook b6, put pressure on this. Then rook b4, put pressure on this isolated pawn, and then eventually you can also bring this rook to b8 or a8 or something, and then go for that pawn break. And when that rook will be there, combined with this knight and then this rook, it will be too much for white to handle that pressure. So this is something Enrique should have played. He actually played rook h b8, a very natural move, and then he's planning for b5. But if he had gotten that rook on b4, then he would just not be able to put pressure on this pawn, but also this pawn. So that would have made things a lot more easier for him. So let's go ahead. So rook, by the way, the result of the game was a draw after rook h b8. It was a long game actually. So still, let's discuss the move that he should have played. So rook a6. Then let's say if something like king c2 is played, white tries to defend it, no problem. Rook b6, tries to come back with the knight. Now we can centralize the knight in this position. There is no more knight f5 idea. And if this rook c8, what's the plan? We can go for this pawn break as well. Doesn't mean that we have to go only for this pawn break. And definitely because of this rook, c5 idea combined with that centralized knight, it's not a fun position for white to play. So the rook lift and then going for either b5 pawn break or c5 pawn break to put pressure on the opponent. Now let's say after rook a6, if f3 was played, covering this square, no problem. Let's continue with our idea. Rook b6, king c3, no problem. Rook b4, then this, and now rook b8. Black is ready for b5 with such active pieces. The queen side of white will get under tremendous pressure. Now let's go for the next position. So this is white to play here. And if you want to attempt this position, please pause the video here and then you can resume once you are ready with the move. So in this case, white is Grandmaster Abdusattorov, and let's try to understand what happened in this game. By the way, this is also from one of their online blitz games. So we can clearly see that this knight is in the center. This bishop is controlling this diagonal because of no f7 pawn, because of the pawn on h6. The light squares have become weaker. We have definite pressure on the king side. So Abdusattorov had a very clear way to slowly increase the pressure on the king side. And to do that, he had to start with this move, g4. So what's the idea behind g4? Why are we making our king side weak? See, the point in this position is that, yes, our king side gets weaker, but black does not have that much active pieces to take advantage of that. And by bringing the knight back, we have an idea to slowly increase the pressure. We already had some pressure. In g4, we get that knight back, and then you can play knight h4. So what does that do? Now the knight is also doing something. Then there can be some plans of exchanging this rook and getting this rook on the open file. There can sometimes be idea of g5 and then queen h5. So whenever the queen will not be there. So just showing you the potential ideas of how we can respond to the opponent's plan. So depending upon what black does, we can and do something. So by the way, instead of g4, king h2 was played in the game. So it was it was kind of a seesaw. So white is still better, and then you won the game. But as I said, g4 would have helped him in putting significant pressure. So let's see, after knight h4, let's say if the opponent plays knight a5, targets this bishop, no problem. Let's take control of this open file and bring that bishop to f7. We are not going to bring it back to c2. And as it can be clearly seen, there is definite pressure on black's king side. Let's see if d5 happens. No problem. We are not in a rush. Our pieces are already quite active. King h2. We are planning to play g5, but the problem was this pawn was hanging. So we can just do this, and this is actually really troublesome position for black to be in. Let's say after knight h4, if black decides to play d5, no problem at all. Now what we can do is we can try to put some pressure on the queen side as well actually. So putting pressure on both the sides. Opponent exchanges the rooks, no issue. So now let's exchange. Then what? Our bishop is being blocked. So we should try to do something about it. Putting pressure through the center. And then rook is on the open file. Get it on the 7th rank. And then the rook, so the queen also gets on the open file. And this is significantly unpleasant position for black to be in because of the tremendous king side pressure that we are putting. So if Abdusattorov had played knight h4, then he would have gotten so g4, and then knight h4, he would have gotten tremendous attack on the king side. So thanks everyone for watching the video, and please provide your valuable feedback in the comments. Lastly, don't forget to check chessneurons.com, your go-to platform for improving your positional chess. I'll see you in the next video.